time to revisit some of the camp battles and questions that we've been looking to answer. And we're going to start today with the secondary group. That's coming up next and more on this episode of Locked On Commanders.
Your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to your Wednesday episode of the Locked On Commanders podcast, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making it. You can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to continue this conversation with me after the episode is over, just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to do so. And you can text with me, your host, David Harrison, on Twitter at DHarrison82, Washington Commanders beat reporter for Commander Country, a part of Sports Illustrated's FanNation, and your host for this episode every Monday through Friday here with you and every dayers. I also appreciate those of you who are coming through every day that we drop an episode. On today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we are at Washington Commanders training camp day 7, and we're going to be talking about some comments from head coach Ron Rivera about quarterback Sam Howell, and we're going to hear from Washington Commanders rookie safety Quan Martin. Of course, we're also going to do our Howell watch, but first, we've got to start with a reacclimatization. That's not even a word that I just said, but we're going to talk about the secondary group here. We've been going around the position groups, looking at camp battles, looking at camp questions that we're trying to answer during this portion of the preseason. And we're kind of coming back now to revisit some of these position groups and some of these battles. And today I thought it'd be fun to start with the secondary group. A lot of people really excited about this secondary group, about the talent that's on here from a veteran standpoint, a young talent standpoint, and just really trying to answer the question of how many DBs can this team really keep and how are they going to utilize all of them. So I thought that was a good place to start with here today on Wednesday. And look, bottom line, we've been ranting and raving about the intelligent and aggressive play that we've been seeing from this Washington Commanders secondary, and that has only continued as we've gotten deeper into training camp. But what we're starting to see now more that I think is very interesting is we're starting to see that level of play, that intelligent play, that aggressive play being persistent, consistent through every single echelon of this team, whether it's the second team defense, the third team defense. The secondary is certainly starting to show itself as a strength here, whether it's Benjamin St-Juste or Emmanuel Forbes on the outside, while Kendall Fuller is getting a little bit of veteran rest on Wednesday, or second-year cornerback Castro-Fields, who's in with the second-team defense from time to time. The secondary is present, and it is making plays. So while this front seven is certainly impressive, and everybody knows about it, the secondary also making a name for itself here during training camp. And one thing that Tariq told me after practice said, quote, "I definitely feel way better than I did rookie year, being accustomed to the defense. I'm just trying to come to work every day and put my best foot forward and keep improving," end quote. So good to see Tariq doing that. Good to hear from him after practice as well. As far as rotation is concerned, the team looks pretty consistent with Emmanuel Forbes and Kendall Fuller on the outside. When there are three cornerbacks on the field, Benjamin St-Juste is sliding inside into the slot. Cam Curl is looking like a lock to be the team's Buffalo nickel. Also, one of the deep nickels or deep safeties when there's only two safeties on the field, along with Derek Forrest holding down that other safety spot. Second-year safety Percy Butler is getting into the first-team formation to replace Curl when Cam Curl drops down into the box as that Buffalo nickel, like we said. And honestly, I think that alignment, we've seen some other iterations of this formation. We've seen Emmanuel Forbes get a little bit of work inside. I don't remember seeing a single rep where Kendall Fuller has gone inside. I know that's something that we've talked about being a possibility as well. That hasn't really happened. So I really think this is going to be kind of your alignment. When there's only two cornerbacks on the field, which we all know in today's NFL is really kind of rare. I've seen Kendall Fuller out there with Emmanuel Forbes. I've seen Kendall Fuller out there with Benjamin St-Juste. So I really think that when it comes down to making a decision on who's out there, neither guy has really completely separated themselves yet, but it might come down to a matchup discussion, something like that moving forward. Of course, that's something that we'll continue to monitor as we near the first preseason game coming up next weekend. So this weekend, obviously, no game, but next weekend, the Washington Commanders are in Cleveland to get football, man, get back to the field and get back to doing things. So again, I like that alignment. I think that's where they're going to stick. But they've also got some depth players. Again, Castro-Fields, we talked about. Rookie Quan Martin has seen some safety reps. He's seen some cornerback reps. All-pro special teams contributor Jeremy Reeves is also running around out there making plays. So when St-Juste is outside for the first team and Fuller's off the field like he was today, it's actually Rashad Wildgoose we're seeing get reps in the slot. So Kendall Fuller getting a little bit of rest today. You got Emmanuel Forbes outside, Benjamin St-Juste outside, and Rashad Wildgoose getting in there with the first team defense against the first team offense in the slot. Quan Martin has been the second team slot defender. Siri Castro-Fields, Christian Holmes getting some second team outside work, while Jeremy Reeves and Percy Butler are holding on the second team safety spots, it would appear as of right now. Some secondary highlights from day 7 from Wednesday afternoon. Terrell Burgess, the safety, got an interception in 7-on-7 drills, picking off Jake Fromm. Pretty nice play by him, but again, coming in sevens. Christian Holmes had a very strong, impactful hit on receiver Marcus Kemp, forcing an incomplete pass, again, coming in sevens. And then Jeremy Reeves, all-pro Revo, was in very, very good trail technique on a pass route run by Bryson Tremaine, and ended up coming up with a big PBU on the offense's sideline. And that the offense wasn't happy to see that. The fans were happy to see it, and the defense certainly was happy to see it. Also got a question from a subtexter today about secondary depth and whether or not Washington is going to be able to keep all the players, or if a potential trade is coming. We see NFL teams do this a lot during the preseason. If there's a player that they just can't keep for whatever reason, a lot of times they'll execute a trade and see if they can get draft capital back, or every once in a while we see a swap of players, things like that. So look, if I had to identify 10 defensive backs right now to make the active roster, I think I'd probably go with Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste, Quan Martin, Cam Curl, Derek Forrest, and Percy Butler. I think those are just your automatics, right? Like, those guys are making this roster. So you're already, 6 or 7 deep. And then I think Jeremy Reeves, you got to keep him, not just for his ability on the defensive side of the ball, but obviously that special teams ability is incredibly valuable. And then I think Danny Johnson is a guy you got to keep. And I think you're looking at Christian Holmes, which I think Tariq Castro-Fields, quite honestly, has looked better right now than a guy like Christian Holmes. But I do feel like Christian Holmes, I don't know if the team's going to be ready to move him down to the practice squad after some of the promise that he showed last year. And I think certainly did show some promise. Also has some rough moments, like a rookie will, especially a late round draft pick rookie. But, I think maybe that's kind of where the battle really kind of is. But look, Rashad Wildgoose is also a player that seems to me like he's probably going to get a spot too, right? Like, again, for me, for whatever reason, my evaluation of Rashad Wildgoose, not the greatest, but the team seems to like him, certainly, and there's some other media members that, and I've told a couple media members just today, apparently it's a me problem. I don't know what it is, but I just don't see it, and a lot of times when I focus in on Rashad, it just happens to be a bad rep, and again, you can only see what you see, so that's probably just bad timing and bad luck there. But if Rashad makes the list, then Danny Johnson or Christian Holmes is one of those guys going to go. So again, there is an abundance of talent here for the Washington Commanders, but that means, and 10 DBs, I mean, that's a lot of DBs for any NFL team to carry. So there is a potential for a trade there, certainly. If the Washington Commanders have a DB that they might try to get on the practice squad, but don't feel like they're going to be able to get him on the practice squad, that might be a trade that they execute. But as far as that trade being for an offensive lineman, that was what the specific question was. It could be. It could be for an offensive lineman, certainly. I won't say that that's not a possibility, but you're not going to get a starting caliber offensive lineman for, even Danny Johnson. If you trade Danny Johnson away because you're not going to get him to the practice squad, but he's not going to make your final roster or your initial roster because you want to carry Christian Holmes or whatever, or Rashad Wildgoose for that matter, you can trade him, but you're not going to get, a starting offensive lineman. That's just not really how that's going to happen. So even if you do trade someone from the back end of your defensive back group, you're probably going to get a back end offensive line group guy. And honestly, the offensive line is so intricate. It's so detailed. It's such a team effort. I don't know if you want to trade near the end of training camp preseason for a new offensive lineman who's now going to have to catch up and try to learn everything on the fly as the season's getting going. So honestly, I think that if there's a trade here in the secondary group, that you're most likely looking for a late round draft pick, maybe get a 6th rounder for a guy like Danny Johnson. Again, not advocating for a trade of Danny Johnson, just spitballing some potential ideas here. And, it's going to be a tough decision, man. I mean, a lot of these guys, you could say there's no reason or no way you should trade a lot of these guys, including Danny Johnson. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Washington Commanders do here. Also got some other questions about the offensive line. So I will give a little mini update on that group because I know that it's a group of high interest here for the Washington Commanders. Second day of pads, there was a little skirmish that broke out. I'm going to call it that, a skirmish that broke out in team periods. Center Nick Gates and linebacker Khaleke Hudson were engaged on the play in a normal block type of play, and one of them, I think it was Khaleke Hudson, did not approve of the way the play went down. So they kind of started talking to each other, and then Nick Gates, one of them shoved the other, and Nick Gates slapped Khaleke Hudson's face mask. Cody Barton got involved there. So it was very quick, over very quickly. Some other players had to come in. Terry McLaurin was a peacemaker in that situation, came in, helped break it up. So certainly the defensive line, looks better, you know what I mean, from the offensive line, but it should also look better. What I'll tell you is that the offensive line did better on Tuesday, the first day of padded practice, against this defensive line that I expected them to. And I think they did okay on Wednesday as well. But again, I think you have to talk about expectation management. We're talking about a potential top 8 to 5 defensive line, one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. A brand new offensive line just getting blended together is going to have some struggles. But we also saw some really good moments, and we also saw, a good 2 yards of push from the offensive line on Tuesday and Wednesday in the run game. So those are all, positives that you want to carry forward. And as this offensive line gels and becomes even better, hopefully that 2-yard push against this offensive line or defensive line becomes a 3-yard push against, say, the Arizona Cardinals defensive line. So we'll dive into the offensive line group again later on in the week. But one quick note, administrative note, Sadiq Charles did not practice on Wednesday, does have a calf injury. Not sure how serious it is, but we will keep an eye and an ear out for that and give you updates as we can. So we'll talk offensive line again later, but I had a lot of subtexters asking about it, so I thought I'd give you a quick little brief update. But for now, let's move on to our Howell Watch today, our play of the day, and then we'll bring in head coach Ron Rivera, some footage from his press conference this morning, and rookie defensive back Quan Martin. All that's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20, and you'll land $200 in bonus bets whether you win or you lose. That's $200 that you can then spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Looking at up-to-date World Series odds, your current favorites are the Atlanta Braves at plus 300 with the Dodgers, Rays, and Astros following behind. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Orioles have the 6th best odds at plus 1,200, and the Washington Nationals are tied for the lowest odds at plus 100,000. That's their line. No matter what you're wagering on, you can do it all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks again for taking Locked On Commanders, your first listen or view today and every day. Appreciate you coming through for all of the training camp coverage as we continue through day 7 here today. Day 8 coming up on Thursday. Day 9 coming up Friday, and then we're off for a day and we'll be back out Sunday. Again, you will get an episode after every single practice happening here in training camp. Second-year quarterback Sam Howell completed 13 of his 22 pass attempts for a 59% completion rate and finished the practice better than he started. That's our Howell Watch for day 7 here at Washington Commanders training camp. Now, prior to the day, Washington head coach Ron Rivera did talk about Sam Howell and said that he's kind of faded in some previous practice sessions, saying, quote, every one of his throws, I sit there and watch it and try to see how long it took for him to get where it needs to. It's not just him going through it, but also getting to that point where he gets to his setup. Is his footwork good? One of the things that Coach Tavita Pritchard talked about is that for the most part, it's been really good until he gets near the end. He does get a little tired, a little lazy with it, and he's got to push himself through that, end quote. Now, you're going to hear the full comment that Ron Rivera made, but that's an abbreviated comment from Ron Rivera. I am going to play that full clip, that full comment, so you can hear it here in the following segment. But basically, the point is this: as we're watching quarterback Sam Howell go through, and we talked about this, right? Again, we talk about expectation management with the offensive line. We talk expectation management with a quarterback, right? You have a second-year quarterback in the National Football League, first year as a starter, expected starter coming in here. So there's going to be some ups and downs. And I think that when you're looking at the ups, you want to see the growth in the player. You want to see the ability in the player to get the ball down the field, throw every route on the field. And we've certainly seen that from Sam Howell. When you talk about the downs, how bad are the downs? And relatively speaking, when you're talking about a quarterback who has thrown 2 interceptions in 11 on 11s, only one of those was really his fault. And even that one, he actually got tripped up by one of his offensive linemen. So you could potentially make the argument that it wasn't completely his fault. So you have 2 interceptions that are kind of both have buts coming after them. And when he misses, he's missing in a way that only his player has an opportunity to make the play, or nobody has an opportunity to make the play. Now, at the end of the day, you still want your quarterback making plays that your receivers can make and making plays that he should make, right? Today, in one of the 11 on 11s, we'll get to the play-by-play breakdown here in just a minute, but in one of the 11 on 11 sessions, Sam Howell had a wide open Terry McLaurin running from right to left through the end zone into the far left corner of the end zone and just completely missed it, just completely airballed it. And, it's a throw that Sam knows he's got to make. It's a throw that Terry McLaurin knows needs to be made. And obviously the team is going to want that to be completed in the red zone in actual games. The good news is the scheme is getting the players open. Right now, what we need to get Sam Howell back on the same page. Coach Rivera talked a little bit about what it means when the ball is ahead, when the ball is behind. So again, I'll let you hear that complete comment from Coach Rivera here later on. But talking about him fading away, that is something that we've kind of noticed during the practices. And honestly, I think that a lot of it is attributed, yes, to footwork, of course, but also I think a lot of it is attributed to the pressure. Again, talking about a top 5, top 8 defense with a top 5, one of the better defensive lines in the National Football League. There is a lot of pressure getting in on Sam Howell right now. We talked about this before. Pressure is cumulative. And even when you're not going to get hit necessarily because it's against the rules, there is still pressure. And Sam Howell's not a quarterback who is okay sitting back there saying, okay, yeah, practice sack, whatever, you didn't hit me, let me throw the ball after a practice sack. He is trying to get the ball out on time. He's trying to get the ball out before the defense gets there. He's reacting to the pressure in real time. And that's exactly what you want from your quarterback. I've seen other quarterbacks, not necessarily here in Washington, but I've seen other quarterbacks, not going to name names, who were basically okay with taking the practice sacks and saying, okay, yeah, you touched me or whatever, but I'm still going to throw the ball to this receiver that got open 3 seconds after you touched me on the shoulder or after you touched me on the back, whatever it is, and then pump their fist and say, yeah, good pass, good completion. And surprise, surprise, when they get to a game, oftentimes that's a quarterback that doesn't feel the pressure, doesn't get the ball out on time, and ends up getting sacked a lot. So, what you want is a quarterback that is practiced. So even though the pressure, you might look at it from an outside perspective and say, well, they can't hit him. So the pressure shouldn't really matter when you're a quarterback who is putting the added pressure on you, saying, I'm not going to let myself have that excuse. I need to get the ball out in time, or I need to react to this pass rush. That's where that pressure comes. And as it builds, you don't want your boss yelling at you 24/7. Sam Howell can take it, and he gets motivated by it, but no human being wants their boss yelling at them every day when they come to work. So he's doing his best to get the ball out on time, doing his best to get the ball where it needs to go. And there's some mechanical things that they're working on to get that there. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, you'll hear Ron Rivera's complete comments about Sam Howell and his processing and his timing here later on in the episode. Now, on Wednesday, the quarterbacks did spend a session of the practice on a side field working with quarterback coach Tavita Pritchard on footwork. Specifically, they were working on footwork. You've seen it. They were bouncing up their feet, moving their feet around, shifting, looking here, looking there, looking left, looking right, and then making a throw when he told him to. Then they came back for 2 more practice sessions, 2 more 11-on-11 sets, and Sam Howell finished the day strong. He looked really good in those final sessions. He finished the day completing 5 of 8 passes in his final 2 11-on-11 sets and connected in the end zone with rookie running back Chris Rodriguez for a touchdown. Is that a coincidence? I don't think it is. I mean, we had the head coach talking in the morning about the footwork and about getting everything right and getting everything on time. And then we have a quarterback who's going through practice, started off a little sluggish, started off not very accurate, and was getting the ball out maybe a little too early and putting the ball too far in front of his receivers. They go onto the side field. They work on some footwork things. They work on some timing things. They come back and he looks cleaner. I think that is analysis, evaluation, coaching, and player all falling in line and getting better. We'll see how they do on Thursday because, again, you do it once, that's great, but now let's see the continued success. So we'll see how that bleeds into Thursday. Obviously, we will continue our Howell Watch, and we will talk about that as well. Play of the day for a second straight day on Wednesday. Our play of the day is going to come from the first team rushing attack after opening a very large A-gap hole from the offensive line. Rookie running back, second-year running back, Brian Robinson Jr. ran through that hole, burst through that hole into the second level and gained a solid 8 yards before he encountered a defender. That defender was safety Percy Butler. And I like Percy, but I got to say, I think full speed Brian Robinson against Percy Butler, catch tackling him. I don't think that's going to end well for Percy. Now, you might make the tackle, but I think that you've got a potential here for that run to go for at least 8 to 10 yards, if not more, if Percy can't make the tackle. It was an encouraging rep for the offensive line, again, especially with Chris Paul filling in at left guard for Sadiq Charles, who was sitting out today. They've had some up and down experiences. We've talked about the level of play of this defensive line going up against that. So to get those kinds of wins, certainly impactful. And it was an impressive run by Robinson. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen him hit a hole as quickly as he did. That one made a quick little one cut, got into the hole with confidence, and got to the second level with a head of steam that I, feel bad for any safety that's needing to make that tackle. So, all right, we're gonna hear from Coach Rivera. We're gonna hear the entire comment that I just talked about his comment on Sam Howell here in the entirety. And we're going to hear from Quan Martin, who met with me after practice. That's coming next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we're going to hear from Ron Rivera. This is a clip of his press conference. Again, video courtesy of the Washington Commanders from before practice, talking about Sam Howell. And then again, we just connected the dots there from the Howell watch, kind of the sluggish start, the slower start that Sam Howell had to begin the practice, working on the footwork, working on the processing like Ron was talking about before practice, and then coming back out in the last two 11-on-11 sets, looking much, much better to end the day fairly strong with, like I said, 5 for 8 in his final 8 passes and a touchdown pass to go with this. So here is head coach Ron Rivera.
What have you seen from Sam in terms of processing and decision-making specifically so far?
That's one of the things that's been really cool is to watch him when you see him recognize it and process it. Part of it, though, is his timing has to get a little bit better when he does see it and get to it. And one of the things that I'm always looking for is as he goes through his progressions, where is that ball placement when he gets to his second or third progression? If that ball is slightly ahead right where it needs to be, then he's processing on time. When it starts getting to that back shoulder and there's no defender here, then he's late. If there's a defender here, it should be on the back shoulder. But when you see it when there's no reason for it to be there, then he's seeing it, but he's got to process it faster. So we're looking for those kind of hints as we're watching him on tape. So every one of his throws, I sit there and watch it and try to see how long it took for him to get to where he needs to. And it's not just him going through it, but also getting to that point where he gets to his setup. Is his footwork good? That's that was one of the things we talked about last year. And that was one of the points that we always try to make about him was that is his footwork where it needs to be? And one of the things that Tavita talked about is that for the most part, it's been really good until he gets near the end. He does get a little tired, a little lazy with it, and he's got to push himself through that. And, it's early in camp.
All right, guys, so that was Coach Rivera, again, before practice Wednesday. So you kind of you line up the dots, right? He talks about that. Then we see what we see at practice. We see the side coaching going on with Tavita Pritchard and then the strong finish from Sam Howell. It all seems to be lining up pretty well right now for the Washington Commanders. Long way still to go in training camp. So we'll see how the continued development of Sam Howell moves forward. Speaking of developing guys, rookie safety Quan Martin came in a little bit late, had to miss rookie camp because of a loss in the family, and he was dealing with that. Came back for OTAs, came back from mandatory minicamp. We caught up with him after practice on Wednesday to have a little conversation. All right, Quan, so we had 7, 8 days in the books. I mean, obviously you guys are working more than what we're seeing, but how you feeling so far in your first training camp?
I feel pretty good, man. Just learning every day, trying to get better, not make the same mistakes as yesterday.
Absolutely. So we're all talking about this secondary, right? Like it looks like a really stacked and I think more importantly, an intelligent, very, very football IQ savvy group. Have you ever been in a defensive back group that you feel like this amount of football intelligence around? I don't want you to talk bad about your boys back in Illinois, but
I mean, sure. Speaking of Illinois, we have one of the best secondaries in college football last year. So I mean, the guys I played with, Devin Witherspoon, Sidney Brown, Kendall Smith, all those guys were savvy football guys. So everybody had a high football IQ. So it's pretty much the same here, and guys just continuing to learn, continuing to grow.
Absolutely. So have you kept in touch with any of those guys from school?
Yeah, man, we speak from time to time. We all in training camp, so our schedule's a little busy. So we try to connect with each other as much as possible.
So watching as much tape as I get from your days in Illinois, it looks to me like no matter where you line up on the field, wherever the play goes, whether you start on the left, the ball goes to the right, you're always around the ball. How do you do things like that?
I mean, it's just a mindset, honestly, man. Just even from when I was growing up, I was always trying to get around the ball because good things happen when you run to the ball. So just trying to be that guy that can make plays, just getting to the ball, just something that can be coached, honestly.
Yeah, and do you feel like you're able to do that so far at the NFL level?
Yeah, for sure.
So playing inside in the slot, playing as a safety, maybe playing in the box and run support, where do you feel most comfortable right now as an NFL player?
Man, I'm pretty much just trying to get everything down. Wherever the coaches put me at, just trying to learn at that position every day. And I just put myself in the best position to make plays. Are
you getting involved in any of the trash talk that's going on the practice field right now?
Not yet, man. I kind of let them handle all that. I'm more of a chill, laid-back dude. I talk some trash when I got to, but I let them guys out of that.
Absolutely. And then the fans are showing up big time right now in training camp. How do you feel about their presence?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. Everybody's been telling me it's night and day from last year to this year. So, I mean, we love the support, man. We got a great fan base behind us, and and we just hope they keep it up during the season.
Absolutely. Going back to the NFL draft, a lot of people were surprised that the Commanders went DB with first round and second round pick. First off, like what was your feeling going into that weekend with the Commanders? Did you feel like this was a spot you could land? And then how did you feel about the double DB dip in the first 2 rounds?
I mean, yeah, so it was definitely a spot that I felt that I could end up at. So it was on my radar going into the draft, and it just so happened to pick me.
All right, and that was rookie Washington Commander safety Quan Martin speaking with me after practice on Wednesday. That's how we're going to wrap up today's episode. Coming up tomorrow, we got day 8 of training camp. We are back in Ashburn. It's the last day for fans to come out this week. So if you are headed this way to enjoy the festivities, please hydrate, bring some sunscreen or shade or whatever you need to protect yourself from the sun, and prepare for fun because it has been a blast, especially with all of you in attendance. Much better than last year, if I do say so myself. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, drop them in the YouTube comment box. Hit me up on Twitter. Email me at lockedoncommanders@gmail.com, or simply text me straight from your phone by going to joinsubtext.com/lockedoncommanders. As always, I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view of the day every day. And to my everydayers, I greatly appreciate all of you for your consistent and continued support of the program. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day, part of your football routine. And until we speak again, please be safe, be kind. I'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.